Hello. Today I would like to go over another attribute stacking build that I cooked up over the past week or so. Previously, if you watch my other previous videos, I was doing a tri-stack bow build, and after basically having perfect gear on that character, I wanted to make a new build. And so crossbows are a new archetype in the game, so I want to convert pretty much the same aspect of scaling into a crossbow version. I got to looking up YouTube to see how other people are doing crossbow builds or attribute builds, and I mean, there's not a ton of creativity out there because basically you have to use Hoa if you're an attack build, and tri-stacking is just really good. But on my perusing of the internet, I came across this clickbait creator. He's come out with some good content, but when someone says they've created like the best crossbow build or something like that, I investigated to see if that was actually the case, and I believe that I have done something better. Even though my budget is a lot higher, this is pretty normal for tri-stackers to even like Pillar of the Cage God or bow tri-stackers or crossbow stackers. They travel all the way up to Mom, and it's so much pathing, and it's like, I don't know, in my opinion, really inefficient. So much like my bow build, I've created a build that is more, I don't know, centralized to good nodes. So obviously, if you're playing a tri-stacker, or most of them, you're playing gemling, and you're still getting a lot of good nodes here. You're still getting a lot of good nodes here, and a lot of good nodes here. Especially, and I will talk to. I'm getting a bunch of crit nodes. But traveling all the way over to Mom, and then mana cost is really high if you have high levels, and traveling to Mom, uh, like you get a ton of life on as a attribute stacker, so you kind of get like giving up life when you don't need to give up life to go Mom, and it reduces your regen and it makes you less tanky. So yeah, uh, going back to the video, sure, maybe on a budget this is better, but in my opinion, if you equally stack attributes, which is what I've done in this build, and it's the same, pretty much all the same gear as my previous build, or same setup, where my bow build had like 900s and everything, because I was using a Widow Hail and Quiver bonuses to get a ton of dex attribute from my Quiver. These attributes are a little lower, but crossbows have something that bow builds do not, and that is fresh clip. So this support is really, really good, and it's insane because, again, there's so much attribute scaling into attack speed in the game currently that we can get to insane levels of attack speed. Like, this build can attack, I don't know, 20 to 45 times a second, and so if that's the case, fresh clip, like, doubles or triples your damage. So that is why crossbows are really good. And my previous build, bow builds, were really good because of the quiver bonus scaling. So this is the broken mechanic for crossbows, and then quiver scaling is a broken mechanic for bows. Uh, as for gear, again, I'm pretty much using the same gear as I did on my bow character. It's just, I mean, everyone's using this gear if you have infinite currency. So attributes, Hoa, attributes, 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 Hoa, attributes. Yeah. So in my investigations, going back to the video, in this video, he suggests correctly for the budget that he's currently using, or the setup he's using, is that your crossbow should have a lot of attack speed, gem levels, and weapon elemental damage on your weapon. And this makes sense because since he's traveling so much and he doesn't have an equal distribution of strength, intellect, and dexterity, that he doesn't have a lot of increased damage. So because of that, weapon elemental damage on his weapon is pretty much required. So what he's suggesting is this mod is basically required because on his tree or on his gear, like he's only getting whatever 200 to 300% increased damage, and then this adding another 100 is like a 25% increased damage. I don't have that issue. partially because I have really good gear, and partially because I'm actually tri-stacking. So since I have 700 of everything, this node gives me a ton of damage because it's the lowest attribute, and my lowest attribute is 750. So this is giving me like 300% increased damage, which is equivalent to his whole entire tree, basically. And on top of this, I'm also getting a lot of increased damage from my Adorn Jewels. So ignore the crit for now. I'm going to talk about this in a sec. But like projectile damage, crossbow damage, that is increased flat damage, or yeah, increased percentage damage, which is being scaled by Adorn. So since I have 11, I think, no, I have 9 jewels, whatever, 9 or 10 jewels. So this is being scaled up, so it's like 30% increased damage times 9, so 270 plus, so that's 300 increased damage. This is 300 increased damage. So the weapon elemental damage with attacks, once you get to an extremely high budget, isn't really that good. And so, based off that knowledge, if you're going to go my version of the build, then cheaper, very, very cheap crossbows that have just increased flat damage will become better. So, lightning damage is the best, and then physical damage is the second best. So, again, you'll still want levels, you'll still want attack speed, and then you'll want a really high lightning damage roll, and then really high fizz damage. So, I don't know, something like this 20 divines, which would previously, like, elemental damage over here, you would get, like, very little flat damage, and you're paying out the wazoo for this modifier because that video is really popular, and he's basically saying this is required, which in his version it is required. But once you get more gear, then items like these become better and better and better, because the issue now doesn't become how much increased damage can you get, it's how much flat damage you can get. So that was my first version of the build. Okay, now I have crossbows that just have increased a lot of flat damage. I have a lot of good items. And then I was doing a bunch of testing in the past few days. I have since converted into crit damage because I got kind of lucky on this crossbow. So I was going for attack speed when I was rolling this with Whittlings, but I hit max crit chance. And so after I hit this, I did some math, and it turns out crit is really, 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 really good in this game. Some people say like you can't scale crit very well, which is true. You can't scale crit chance very well, but you can scale crit multi like to the wazoo. So, again, going back to the tree, there's not a lot of areas that give like really, really good crit nodes, I guess. So this one is really, really good because this is 1% base crit, and then curiously, these crit nodes give attributes. I don't know why, but since obviously we are attribute stacking, these nodes become insane. And on top of these nodes being insane, these nodes are also insane because they also give attributes. And so, yeah. Um, since we were already pathing pretty close to these nodes, I just picked them up, and the crit damage is insane. And so then once I swapped to the crit version, I swapped out all my jewels because I was previously getting increased damage and then attack speed. But then I switched them all into increased damage and crit multi or crit chance. And so again, there's very few good crit clusters, but there's a lot of jewel clusters. So we basically, I mean, we're an Adorn setup, so we can force any stat we want into a huge amount, and crit is being my choice. So going into the crit version of the build, I'm probably doing like 30% more damage, just because since previously my Adorn Jewels, again, had increased damage and then attack speed, but since we have like 300, 400, 500% attack speed, whatever much I have, attack speed becomes more inefficient the more you have. So switching to crit gave me that much more damage. So, yep, that's really good. And also on the tree, since we have a ton of attributes and our mana's good, and yeah, just we have a ton of attributes, and I have basically perfect gear, so I don't run out of mana. So since we don't run out of mana, I don't need to take the 30% reduced mana cost, so I go into the +1 levels. And it's also really good because this quality increases the number of bolts that we load into our shot. So as you can see, I have 20 quality from gem cutters, but then 14% quality from my Ascendancy. And you can see I'm loading 3 more bolts per reload. And so this is my clear skill. So it goes from 5 to 8, which is 60% more bolts. And then since a DPS limiting factor is our reload time, getting these additional bolts is actually really good. I don't know, smoothness and or damage increase. And it's the same thing with our single target. So this is our AoE skill. This is our single target tool. Again, quality increases the number of bolts that we get, which both feels good and is synergistic with fresh clip, because even though you want to reload more because reloading gives you more damage, your reload when you're reloading, you're not doing damage, so you don't really want to reload a ton. So adding more bolts is actually a damage increase even for a fresh clip. But also, since fresh clip is broken, we want it both for our clear skill and for our single target skill. So if we need fresh clip 2 times and the game's limitation is only 1 support, then most people, or some people, would suggest you take gem studded, which I think the other video suggests you do. I do not suggest this, again, because +1 levels is really good and quality is really good, and this travel node into 2 copies of the same support is worthless, and these pathing nodes are worthless. So it's basically spending 4 ascendancy points to get a, I don't know, decent or semi-required, but you can get this other places, which again I used in my bow build, which is the helm slot. So this helm allows you to use 2 supports, and it doesn't have a downside because we have infinite attributes, so the increased attribute requirement doesn't matter for us. And also, instead of using the attribute helm, I forget what it's called, it gives like 15% to all stats. This actually gives armor and evasion, which makes us more tanky, which is always a nice thing. So either you use this helm or you take the other Ascendancy, which, again, I would use this helm because seems really good to me. So that's the setup. I guess I'll go through the supports. Fresh clip, literally broken. It's like the best support in the whole entire game by far. And then we want more attack speed to increase our fresh clip amount. Lightning infusion, really good damage support. Long shot, it's decent, especially since this is our clear skill. We one-shot everything, and the farther away that we one-shot everything even more. And then primal, just more damage. And then I will show you a breach in a sec once I go through all this stuff. But again, these are pretty much all the same supports because it does insane damage. Fresh clip, more attack speed, damage, and then more damage. Because this is an AoE skill, so Conk Effect is legit broken, as I will show you. And my weapon swap, I'm using Stormcaller. This is where I get my shock from, and also on the tree, this is where I split up into weapon sets. So this is increased magnitude of shock, and then this is increased magnitude of shock. So I will shoot, I will shoot my arrow, and then switch, or once the target is shocked, it's shocked for like 8 or so seconds, and then the target needs to be shocked for reload or shock burst to do a lot of damage. So that is done seamlessly. It's bugged in the hideout. I can't seamlessly switch, but I'll show you on the boss fight. It is seamless. So these are the shock supports that I use. More shock, even though I shock every time. Longer shock, and then a bigger magnitude shock. And then emergency reload. This is just more damage on a long cooldown. Voltaic Mark, once my target is shocked, if for like a 66% shock, I think, I can Voltaic Mark it for the maximum 100% shock. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure the maximum shock that you can apply to a target is 100%, and we get to that with Voltaic Mark. And then since we're using this OP helm, we have double supports, and so I use a lot of double supports for my Herald of Thunder just for more clear damage, because my Herald of Thunder is 6-linked with all damage support, so it does a lot of damage. Tooltip's 33k, my Galvanic Shards is like 150k. Gosh, why do I keep switch to my crossbow? 145k, so Herald of Thunder is doing like 20% of our overall damage while mapping, and it also has Innervate, so if I kill a shock target with Herald of Thunder, which is supported by Execute, so it does more damage to kill shock targets, Innervate's up, I don't know, 50% of the time during mapping, so this is a 35% more damage increase. So Execute, Innervate, Focus, Long Shot, and Primal. Again, we're using double supports for this, double supports up here, just for more damage. And then Wind Dancer, just so we can have more evasion. We get up to like 60%, I think. And then Clarity, even though we don't have many issues, we don't really have a better thing. Precision, because of our accuracy is converted to attack speed. And then Cannibalism, because it's OP, because once you're in maps or breaches or whatever, you're killing 10 mobs a second, so you're getting 40% HP a second. It's really, really good. So that is the character. I will now... Where's the... Here it is. I'll now show you an example. So, yes, I am not using double Herald tech for Herald of Thunder, Herald of Lightning, exploding everything, but our AoE shoots out pretty far. I mean, I'm hitting like the edge of the map or screen, and the cone is like a 90-degree angle, so sure, his double Herald probably better for clear, especially AoE clear, yes, but I don't want every single build that I play to turn into the same exact build. Then also, if it gets nerfed, I don't know when GGG is going to nut up and actually nerf us, so I don't want the build to... I don't want to suggest things to the build that will probably get nerfed, because, yeah, I don't really see Herald of Ice surviving at least the next patch, and I don't know when that is. So, obviously, I have, I don't know, perfect gear, so I do a lot of damage. My previous tooltip was 145 once I don't have any fresh clip stacks, and I'm not completely spamming my ability right now, but I'm getting up to like the, whatever, 150, 300k range. I mean, if I just stand here and just spam, it goes up to like, whatever, 240. So that's like 80% more damage from support, which is pretty good. And since I only have 8 bolts on my clear, fresh clip isn't as good for my AoE skill as it is my single target skill, because my fresh clip, every single time I reload, I'm getting 34% more damage every single time for my shock burst, versus only 8% more damage with this one. So now we will go to the boss. Again, I'm going to shock the boss with my arrow, and then unload it on fresh clip, or my shock burst. And I'm going to shoot around to get up my fresh clip. There's the shock, 91%. I didn't feel like dodging that, just so you can see that the build is tanky when you have a lot of strength on your character. So, that's the build. It's pretty good. Yep. I think I covered everything. If you have any questions, put them in the comments and I'll get to them. Thanks.